I was excited to be heading off on my first trip to South America, but my arrival in Bogota was delayed because we were late arriving at DFW. The pilot said the seatbelt light was on because we had just landed ahead of some storms that were moving into the area. After we landed in Dallas, we found out that those storms were a series of tornadoes we were flying just in front of. The flight to Bogota was running late because they had to fly around the storm. We boarded a half hour late, then we waited on board. With time to sit and not being allowed to get out my laptop, this notice amused me for some reason. Were we only allowed to put books by Emily Bronte and William Faulkner in this slot?
2 hours, 25 minutes. Current weather conditions at DFW, they have partly cloudy skies. Temperature is 82 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 28 degrees Celsius. Now please watch your cabin crew in the aisle while we demonstrate the safety features of this Airbus 321 aircraft.
Then we were told we had to deplane because of lightning strikes in the area. It began to look as though the flight might be canceled. A friend who works for another airline texted me that his airline had canceled all flights in and out of DFW due to the weather. A 10-hour hold. I was starting to worry I'd have to try to find a cheap hotel since weather delay stayovers are not covered by the airlines. They are acts of God, so I knew from past experience would be on our own. On Facebook, I posted about the delay and dilemma, and a friend responded that he lives 20 minutes from the airport and he'd be happy to pick me up and let me spend the night. It's nice to have friends all over. But then we got word that if we took off fast, we could dodge the winds and rain and get airborne before the main part of the storms hit. But we would have turbulence, so the seatbelt sign would be lit for the first few hours of the flight, and the food and beverage service would be delayed. Those were small inconveniences for being able to get out of there. My window seat had no window, but there would not been much to see anyway, just clouds and then darkness. I was exchanging WhatsApp messages with a friend I knew from Grand Teton, who lives in Bogota, who was supposed to pick me up at the airport, telling him how late we were running and I would understand if he wanted to go to bed and I would just get a cab to my Airbnb. But he graciously said he would keep track of the flight's arrival time and still pick me up. And he and his sister were there waiting for me. In the dark and rain, Bogota looked a little scary at night, but they found my place okay. The next day, the neighborhood and city looked much better. This is the building where I stayed. I got to sleep after 3 a.m. and got up at noon the next day. I wandered the neighborhood a bit and did a little grocery shopping to at least have some breakfast and lunch things to be able to eat in a few days and save money. The Airbnb I rented did have a small kitchen. The building and apartment were very nice, but the bathroom had the weirdest sink I had ever seen. It was shared on 2 sides of the partition, not leaving much room in either half. The shower portion of the bathroom had no door, so if I was staying with a friend who was not a very close friend, as I have done, as small as the apartment was, it would have been difficult to keep your traveling companion from seeing more than they had bargained for. In the course of my wanderings, I happened across the Basilica Menor Nuestra Señora de Lourdes. In Europe, I had learned the difference between a cathedral and a basilica. A basilica is a church, not necessarily a large one, that has been designated by the Pope as having special historical or cultural significance. Often it is a church that has been visited by the Pope, as this one had. There was a mass in progress, so I couldn't see parts of the church, not wanting to disturb the worshippers, but the next day, the walking tour I went on stopped at the basilica and was able to see more of the beautiful building. As with any time I visited churches in Europe or Mexico, there were a good many people praying in there. On the walking tour the next day, our guide also explained that when the church was built, it dominated the neighborhood, but now the rest of the world had encroached, and the square in front of the basilica was now surrounded with everything from bars and nightclubs to stores selling sex toys. The neighborhood where I was staying, Chapinero, which came recommended as close to a lot of things, has a lot of restaurants nearby. The free walking tour of Chapinero I thought would get me oriented in the city. The starting point for the tour was a 10-minute walk from my Airbnb and met in Hippies Park. While we were waiting for the tour to start, the guide pointed out Claudia Lopez. That is her seated at the left in blue. She is running for president of Colombia. She was the mayor of Bogota and is from Chapinero. She is the first member of the LGBTQ plus community to rise to that level in Colombian politics. This is a rainbow flag on display in the National Museum of Colombia. Colombia is one of the most accepting countries in South America, and same-sex marriage is legal there. Claudia Lopez was also the first woman ever elected to be the mayor of their capital city. The walking tour took us around the neighborhood of Chapinero. Chapinero, the tour guide Daniel explained, takes its name from the combination of a man's last name and the unique type of thick-soled footwear people used to wear to walk from the center of Bogota to this neighborhood through a wetland, so the thick shoes kept their feet dry. Daniel also explained the graffiti and street art culture of Bogota, that such impromptu decorations are illegal now, but there are rules, both written and unwritten, as to how it's done. For instance, tagging someone else's art, as Demoler had done in this painting, is considered rude. The walking tour also took us past several coffee shops named for Juan Valdez, the Colombian coffee grower who was a constant on television commercials in the United States when I was growing up. This is the first location of those shops, which are as plentiful in Bogota as Starbucks are in most American cities. Our tour also took us past an outdoor gym near Lourdes Park. It reminded me of the famous Muscle Beach in Venice, California, which I walked by often when I lived near there. There'll be lots more to say about my years in Venice in future installments of Walt's Wanderings. Another thing that reminded me of Southern California was this bit of graffiti echoing the famous sign that once warned drivers about people crossing the freeway in Camp Pendleton between Los Angeles and San Diego. The walking tour also took us past many embassies in Bogota. Many were private mansions that have now been converted into embassies. According to our guide, there was a time when Bogota was trying to look more European and bringing in architects from Germany and Austria to make it look like the old world. They even imported mailboxes from England that are no longer in use. At some point, Bogota decided to protect these older buildings, and although they can be repurposed, they cannot be altered without permission of the Historical Preservation Board. There will be lots more episodes about Bogota, but before we close this one, I will mention that at first I found it a bit tricky to navigate the city until my friend Diego explained how the street numbering system works. For a few days, I was unable to navigate with my phone until I finally confirmed that my roaming plan does not actually work in Colombia, and I had to download an eSIM for my phone. Secondly, most intersections do not have street signs at all. The signs that do exist are on the side of buildings and hard to see from the street and often well hidden or partially obscured. And it doesn't help that they renumbered the streets years ago, but never took down the old signs, so often there were two different numbers for the same street. Diego told me to ignore the black ones and only follow the green ones. It's also a bit tricky that they have so many different abbreviations for street. Carrera could be abbreviated CRA, AK, or KR, or just K. And just as in New York, they always give the street first, followed by the avenue, such as I live at 48th and 17th, would mean 48th Street and 17th Avenue, people in Bogota always list the Carrera before the calle. This place has two numbers, and I wondered if someone dyslexic made one of these sets of numbers. And some streets had names as well as numbers, and some just had names. But once I got my phone working and was able to use my GPS, and I was able to call Ubers, and once I learned the actual street numbering system, I was able to find my way around all right. But before we return to my adventures in Bogota, including some great museums and a ride up to Monserrate, next time on Walt's Wanderings, I will take you along as I visit some state capitals in the United States in a two-parter. Subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes in North or South America.